So my name's Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. I'm coming to you from Beirut, Lebanon. I was scheduled to spend a couple of days here and then to travel to Erbil to spend a few days in Iraq with the Christian community throughout these parts of the Arab world in the Middle East. But I talked yesterday about some of the recent attacks by Iran and some of the escalations there was an attack on Erbil and some other anti-Iranian sites in the past 24 hours. And so I'll be in Beirut for a couple of days. The Iraqi Kurdish Prime Minister Mansour Barzani accused Iran of killing innocent civilians in its strikes on the capital of the semi-autonomous Kurdistan region. I'm speaking of Erbil. And Iran's Revolutionary Guards earlier said they attacked an Israeli spy center in the region, speaking on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos after the attack. Barzani said the Iranian allegations were baseless, and added that now was not the time for the U.S. forces to withdraw from the country. We've talked about this before, that there are continue to be a U.S. presence in Iraq, and there's a question in the middle of these times about whether or not that's constructive or whether or not the Iraqi community might want the U.S. to exit. Iraq on Tuesday condemned Iran's quote-unquote aggression on Erbil that led to civilian casualties in residential areas, according to a statement by the country's foreign ministry, after Iran's Revolutionary Guards said they attacked again, that same thing, using that language of spy headquarters. It's important to note that the U.S. Consulate was one of the locations that was hit. There were no casualties. A U.S. State Department spokesperson said that an Iranian attack near Iraq's northern city of Erbil on Monday undermined Iraq's stability. We oppose Iran's missile strikes, Matthew Miller said, State Department spokesperson, and that the U.S. supports the government of Iraq and the Kurdistan regional government's efforts to meet the aspirations of the Iraqi people. The reason this is important is one of the key things we've been talking about over the past several weeks is, as we look at Gaza and we look at the devastation and the number of deaths there, is the prevention of Israel's war on Hamas escalating to a broader regional conflict. And we've been hearing consistently that that has already happened. And so as we look at these minor incidents in some ways, there were deaths in this case, but there were multiple sites that had been attacked. These are examples of where many people here in the region would say this is already a regional war. It might not be severe, it might not have escalated further, but the idea that the war going on right now is only between Israel and Hamas is just not paying attention to what's happening in the broader region. France accused Iran of violating Iraq's sovereignty after the attacks, say that they were blatant, unacceptable, and worrying. And that's kind of a consistent response. Iran's Revolutionary Guard also claimed an attack on Syria, saying that they fired ballistic missiles at quote-unquote terrorist operations in the countries. You, I'm sure, know, and if you've been watching any of my videos over the past couple of months, the U.S. has attacked several pro-Iranian targets throughout the Middle East. And the U.S.'s perspective would be that those pro-Iranian groups have had attacks on U.S. positions throughout the Middle East. So this is kind of another piece in those dynamics. Jordan's foreign minister, who I and a few people with me had the opportunity to meet in the past few days, this is Ayman Safadi. He's Jordan's foreign minister and deputy prime minister. He said this week that Israel was placing many obstacles to the entry of aid into Gaza, and that this was worsening the plight of Palestinians. This was at a press conference with his Australian counterpart. He said these hurdles meant only 10% of the aid that needs to get into Gaza's 2 million people is actually making it into Gaza. Turkey said that it destroyed 23 targets overnight in airstrikes on Kurdish militants in northern Iraq and Syria. This is also an area that I and others were going to be traveling to. This is the Jabha region, the area in northern Kurdistan in northern Iraq. These are attacks against the Kurdistan's Worker Party or the PKK militants, Reuters reported. U.S. Central Command said on Tuesday that it had seized Iranian advanced conventional weapons that were bound for Yemen's Houthis. So we've been paying attention to the Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. The Houthis are backed by Iran, and so the U.S. said that they seized lethal Iranian-supplied advanced conventional weapons. Those attacks by the Houthis on ships in the Red Sea began in November. An Israeli military said on Tuesday that its special forces had carried out a strike in the area of Aita Ash-Shab in Lebanon, which I presume is in South Lebanon. I'm in Lebanon right now. We have not heard otherwise. I'm not familiar with that specific geographic area. Qatar's prime minister said at the World Economic Forum that Israel has to agree to a time-bound mandatory path to a two-state solution. The most urgent thing right now is for the ongoing incursion in Gaza and the bombing to stop. And we have been calling for a comprehensive ceasefire. There are many, many around the world who agree with us at Churches for Middle East Peace and others with that call. There have already been more than 24,000 Palestinians killed, more than 61,000 have been wounded. Israel has said their goal is to eradicate Hamas. And we believe that there is a way forward where Jewish concerns for safety, security, and protection can be secured without the devastating effect on civilians in Gaza. The EU sanctioned the Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar and added him to the group's terrorist list. Then that means he's subject to the freezing of funds and other financial assets as a result of these sanctions. The Council of the EU said that they added him because of the threat posed by Hamas and its brutal and indiscriminate terrorist attacks on Israel on October 7th. The individual designated today is Yahya Sinwar, the political leader of Hamas. Following his listing, he's subject to the freezing of funds and is prohibited for EU operators to make economic resources available to him. Israel said they killed dozens of Palestinian militants in northern Gaza, and that they also uncovered 100 rocket launchers. And a number of EU states said they're concerned that Arab countries and the US are working on a concept for a unified Palestinian government that could attract reconstruction funds, Norway's foreign minister said. So we've been getting wind that there are conversations about the possibility of a united Palestinian government. And the question is, would it be PA? Who might it be? And who should be a part of those conversations? The Egyptian authorities said they thwarted a drug smuggling attempt on the Egyptian-Israeli border on Monday. And finally, aid officials in Gaza believe that pockets of famine already exist in the territory. This is news from the region, but the main thing we want Christians to know, we say stand in the gap, give, act, and pray. We want people to give to humanitarian assistance, one of the great challenges we have, and that's being discussed. We talked to the U.S. ambassador to Jordan yesterday, and we have been paying, I've been reading daily readouts about getting humanitarian assistance into Gaza, and there have been incredible impediments to that. Israel has been very reluctant. There are also impediments caused by past agreements. There are legal impediments. Egypt has also had its challenges. So getting humanitarian assistance in is a challenge. And our argument has been, why do we need to even focus on that? If you stop bombing and stop the killing, that great, great need, and you end the siege on Gaza, you won't have that great, great need. Turn back on the water, right? Fix the infrastructure. And so calling for a comprehensive ceasefire is the first and most desperate need. So we will continue to work to that end as we pray and work toward peace.